소정, 자기 오늘 무슨 색 팬티 입었어?
빨간색이요.
I'm so jealous of you, because you just came across another insanely thrilling power fantasy drama. If you finish watching it and think it is boring, come straight over and slap me in the face. I finally dug up another hidden gem Korean drama, and it even happens to be Choi Min-sik's first intense Korean series. Just looking at this cast lineup, it would be difficult for this drama not to be good. The story mainly follows the male lead, who starts with nothing, but relies on his incredible business mind to become the biggest casino boss in Asia, even standing on equal footing with the president. Without further ado, next, let me tell you the entire drama in one breath, and see how this grassroots male lead turns the tables against all odds. In Korea during the 1980s, this kind of game was popular. Their casino did not play for money, it played for alcohol. It was not because Koreans loved drinking, but because this created an illusion. Even if the police came, they would not be able to do anything to them. Mu-sik, who had just arrived, decided to step forward and try his luck with the encouragement of his friends. Unexpectedly, his luck was unbelievably good, and in the end, he won a huge pile of drinks all at once. After that, his friend took him to a buyback shop, because this way, the drinks could be exchanged for cash, perfectly avoiding all the risks. Mu-sik, who had a business mind, suddenly had an idea and wondered if he could also start a casino. And if he did it, he would do it big. They would only play for money, not alcohol. And he said he would take care of things with the police. So he asked his friend to bring in 12 dealers from out of town. And before long, their casino officially opened. What made Mu-sik very smart was that they only accepted people from high society, while street troublemakers and poor nobodies were all kept out. In order to keep more returning customers, whenever guests lost money in the casino, they would usually return 10% of the money to them. On the surface, it was travel money for the guests, but in reality, it was to make the guests feel a little more at ease. With such a human-centered business model, Mu-sik and his friend made a full 10 billion in less than a month. So the two of them simply decided to open more casinos like this in Korea. And by then, the money they would make would be unimaginable. But the good days did not last long. One day, a group of people suddenly broke into the casino, and like hungry wolves, they immediately sealed off the scene. But they were not the police. They were an investigation team from the National Tax Service. Because Mu-sik had monopolized the business of other casinos, he was reported by his competitors. Fortunately, on that day, Mu-sik and his friend were not in the shop, and the money they made had never gone into the company account. Although the casino business was ruined, at least every penny they earned was still safely in their hands. So the two of them split the money, and Mu-sik went to the Philippines alone to avoid the storm. Here, he had a close friend, and the two of them had been extremely close during their school years. Back then, Mu-sik had even fought many classmates for him, and had almost caused a serious incident. So after learning that Mu-sik had come to the Philippines, Mu-sik's friend not only treated him to a grand meal, but also took him to the most luxurious casino in the Philippines. The moment he got out of the car, Mu-sik was dazzled by the magnificent sight in front of him, and only then did he realize just how low-level Korean casinos really were. Looking at all kinds of casino games inside, along with the rich facilities, this was simply paradise for Mu-sik. Mu-sik could not wait to sit down at the table, and in less than an hour, relying on his experience from running casinos, he won 5 billion won, even more than what he had made from running his own casino. The next day, Mu-sik's friend rented a place for him. Although the environment was not great, being away from home and still having a brother like this already made Mu-sik feel very satisfied. While they were talking, Mu-sik asked about his friend's recent life.
그냥 그렇지 뭐. 사업은 안 돼서 죽겠는데 마누라는 돈 타령이고.
After learning that his friend's son wanted to study abroad, and that his wife also kept asking him for money, Mu-sik simply gave all the money he had won yesterday to his friend. Because of this, Mu-sik's friend was extremely grateful, hugging Mu-sik while crying his heart out. In the following days, because Mu-sik really had nothing to do, he became addicted to spending every day in the casino. But in the end, he never had the same luck again, not only losing all the money he had brought with him, but also piling up a mountain of debt. Chairman Nin, the casino owner, saw that Mu-sik had already lost control. So as a fellow Korean, he reminded Mu-sik that when his luck was bad, he had to learn when to stop. But Mu-sik refused to wake up and bitterly begged Chairman Min to lend him a little more money, promising that he would pay him back within a month. With no other choice, since a fellow Korean had already asked, Chairman Min had to transfer another sum of money to him, and he did not charge any interest. But for a gambler, no amount of money can survive this kind of spending. Before long, Mu-sik had almost lost everything he had. When the casino stopped lending him money, he went to borrow from loan sharks. And in short, he borrowed from everyone he should and should not have borrowed from, until he finally had nowhere left to go. And only then did he stop. Meanwhile, on the other side, Mu-sik's friend took the money Mu-sik had given him, buying a Mercedes-Benz and wearing luxury brands, acting just like a billionaire. He had no idea that his good brother Mu-sik was already so desperate that he almost could not go on, because those loan collectors came to pressure Mu-sik every few days. But the thing Mu-sik feared least was rough debt collection.
그래서 내가 네 돈 떼어먹고 토낄까봐 너 지금 여기 와서 의학 죽이는 거야?
형님, 그 돈 저한테 상당히 중요한 돈이거든요. 갚으셔야죠.
갚아야지. 이자까지 쳐서.
Mu-sik had once been a field agent in the Army Intelligence Unit, someone who had seen real danger, so dealing with a few ordinary men was nothing to him. In the end, with nowhere else to turn, he had no choice but to find his good brother, Mu-sik's friend, for help, hoping to borrow a little money from him to buy a ticket back to Korea. But what he got in return was only cold treatment.
돈이 없는데.
To cover up the awkwardness, Mu-sik asked him when he was sending his child abroad to study.
엄마 나 유학 가?
유학이요?
From the answers of his wife and child, it was obvious that neither of them knew anything about studying abroad, and Mu-sik instantly understood what that meant. So he left this ungrateful man immediately without even eating. What Mu-sik never expected was that when he had no one to rely on in the Philippines, the person who could help him in the end was actually the casino owner, Chairman Min. Although he already owed Chairman Min a lot of money, Chairman Min still gave him another sum of money. But there was one condition. If Mu-sik could complete the task, he would be allowed to stay at the casino and work with him, and his debt would not need to be repaid immediately. When Mu-sik heard this, he was instantly moved, because he no longer knew how to thank Chairman Min. After that, Chairman Min brought over a letter, and inside it were the IOUs signed by Koreans at his casino over the years. To be honest, they were basically old debts that were almost impossible to collect. Although Chairman Min did not have much hope, in Mu-sik's eyes, this was his only chance to rise again. So he immediately returned to Korea, bought a few handy tools, and soon found the first debtor. He was the chairman of a local association, and could be considered a well-known figure. When they learned that Mu-sik had come alone to collect the debt, the group of people in the room unexpectedly burst out laughing.
좌우지간 민 사장님 돈 안 갚으면은 박희성 씨 오늘 나한테 죽어.
After hearing Mu-sik's request, the people in the house laughed even louder, and even Mu-sik laughed loudly along with them. But they never imagined that Mu-sik was only laughing at the ignorance of this group of people. Then he picked up a screwdriver and suddenly struck toward the mouth of a sidekick nearby. Seeing how ruthless he was, the other sidekicks were completely stunned, so frightened that they stood frozen in place and did not dare to move. After that,
오늘 중으로 입금합시다.
Mu-sik called the second debtor. He was a local thug, and when facing Mu-sik, who had come to collect the debt, he instead cursed Mu-sik out, then warned him that if he dared to call again, he would throw him into the deep mountains to feed the wolves. But Mu-sik was not an ordinary man, so he not only continued calling, he even went to the man's wife's hair salon. Then in front of all the customers, he directly put his feet into the shampoo sink, afraid of getting his clothes wet. Mu-sik even took off his pants and walked around the shop in only his underwear. Seeing that business could no longer continue at all, the woman had no choice but to call her husband.
어이구 사장님. 여기는.
어디서 듣도 못하는 새끼가. 그 돈 지금 보낼 테니까 그 계좌번호 불러놔. 어?
아 예 감사합니다 사장님. 예. 아이 진작에 그러셔야지. 근데요 여기 이거만 하면 저기 또 옵니다.
그러고선 내가
예?
찢어 죽여버릴 개새끼만 아주 그냥.
In the following days, Mu-sik successfully recovered all of Chairman Min's debts, and Chairman Min began to see him in a whole new light. Mu-sik also kept his promise, paid off all his loan shark debts, and for the sake of long-term cooperation in the future, he even took the initiative to add a good amount of interest. During this period, someone told Mu-sik a secret, and asked him to stay away from Mu-sik's friend, because just a few days ago,
두고두고 빼먹어야지. 아니 그냥 나를 엄청나게 따르는 착한 친구가 있어.
hearing this, Mu-sik found it unbelievable, because he never expected his own good brother to be this kind of person. So that night, he asked him to come out, wanting to ask him what exactly was going on. At first, Mu-sik did not directly expose the matter, but talked about the past they had shared together, saying that he had indeed caused him a lot of trouble during this time, and hoped he would not take it to heart. But gradually, as the alcohol started to take effect, Mu-sik began to question why Fatty had set him up like this, whether it was because he had given him too little money, or because he himself was too stupid. This series of questions left Mu-sik's friend completely speechless. Unexpectedly, Fatty was the first to lose his temper, holding a sharp piece of broken glass in his hand, cursing Mu-sik as a bastard, and then trying to scare him with action.
자신 있어? 너 5초 안에 너 이걸로 나 못 담그면은 내 네 배때기 쑤셔버릴 거야. 센다. 하나, 둘, 셋, 넷.
But when he saw Mu-sik's cold and serious expression, Fatty immediately backed down, pretending to be heartbroken and wondering how the two of them had ended up like this. And Mu-sik's purpose for coming today was also very clear. He was here to completely cut ties with Fatty, saying that no matter how badly he did in the future, it would have nothing to do with him. From that moment on, Mu-sik completely cut off personal attachments and focused entirely on his career. Chairman Min handed over all the powerful casino clients to Mu-sik and gave him full control. The usual commission for a casino junket agent was 2%, but Mu-sik directly raised it to 6%. What does that mean? It meant that if a gambler placed a bet of 1 million, Mu-sik could earn 16,000, but within that 6% commission, 1% was returned to the guests in the form of hotel vouchers, and these vouchers could be used like cash inside the hotel. And it was exactly this point that made Mu-sik see a huge business opportunity, so he bought back large amounts of unused vouchers at 60% of their value, because at that time, Mu-sik needed to book 150 rooms every day to receive customers, and in 1 month, he had to book a full 5,000 hotel rooms. So when customers settled the bill in cash, he used the low-priced vouchers he had bought back to cover the payment, and from the price difference alone, he could steadily earn a 40% profit. But because he had bought back far too many vouchers, and many of them were close to expiring, Mu-sik handed nearly half of the vouchers to his employees, letting them eat hotel buffets for free as their work meals. After all, this kind of high-end food was out of reach for ordinary people. Besides that, the people coming and going in the restaurant were all upper-class figures, so they might even need some powerful connections. The old man in front of him was the president's chief secretary, and he often brought important guests here to dine. Over time,
Why don't we hold meetings here regularly instead?
Regularly? Here? But it costs a fortune.
I'll sponsor meeting.
the chief secretary started arranging important banquets here, which also created many opportunities for Mu-sik to meet high-level figures, truly achieving two goals at once. At first, there were only small gatherings with people like mayors, governors, and police chiefs. But after they gradually became familiar with each other, the restaurant became filled with high-ranking officials and powerful figures from all walks of life. To thank Mu-sik for his thoughtful arrangements, the chief secretary formally introduced him in front of everyone, allowing Mu-sik to smoothly enter the top-level network. In the eyes of these powerful people, Mu-sik was a wealthy Korean businessman with deep financial strength. Until one day, the president's son suddenly visited, turning this place into the core gathering spot for the top power circles in the Philippines. And it was precisely this gathering that made Mu-sik's career soar to a completely new level. the chief secretary introduced him to a top-level figure named Daniel. He was the hidden controller behind the entire Philippine casino industry, with enormous influence in the local area, and even the current president had risen to power with his support. After the chief secretary praised him strongly, Daniel greatly admired Mu-sik's methods and vision. After learning that Mu-sik had been deeply involved in the casino business, he directly handed over several of his core companies to Mu-sik to manage. From that day on, Mu-sik's status in the Philippines completely crossed into another class, and whenever he went out, police escorts became standard. Even though his status had already surpassed Chairman Min, Mu-sik still knew how to be grateful, and always remained respectful and humble toward Chairman Min. After learning that Chairman Min had been bullied, Mu-sik immediately brought people to the scene.
제가 모시고 있는 우리 민 회장님 이제 그만 건드리시죠.
아, 웃기는 놈이네 이거. 그만하려고 여기까지 왔나?
사장님도 사장님 식구들 누가 건드리면 가만 안 놔두지 않습니까? 나도 마찬가지거든요. 그러니까 이쯤에서 그만두시죠.
The other side knew Mu-sik's current power and did not dare to offend him easily, so they could only put forward a condition, asking him to finish an entire bottle of strong liquor, and from then on, they would no longer make things difficult for Chairman Min. Mu-sik had a fierce personality, and without saying another word, he raised his head and drank it all in one go. As the strong liquor went down his throat, his stomach instantly turned upside down, and after forcing himself to stay calm and walk out of the hotel, he could not help but bend over beside a roadside flower bed and throw up badly. The next day, a wealthy Korean businessman came to the Philippines, and through the introduction of the man with glasses, he met Mu-sik. This big businessman, who had spent many years doing business overseas, valued emotional comfort especially highly. In the following days, Mu-sik stayed by his side the entire time, accompanying him to play golf, relax, and have fun, taking care of him in every possible way. The hotel where the big businessman stayed had a poor environment, so Mu-sik paid out of his own pocket and arranged a luxurious presidential suite for his entire family. On the day before they parted, the big businessman insisted on going to Mu-sik's casino to try his luck. Because the man had brought his wife and daughter with him, Mu-sik politely refused at first, but the other side kept insisting. Mu-sik had no choice but to compromise, repeatedly reminding him that he could only play a little and must not get carried away. After that, Mu-sik brought him into the casino, and facing this completely fresh environment, the big businessman was instantly hooked, so he could not wait to walk toward the gaming table. Seeing that the big businessman's participation in the casino had already become a fact, the man with glasses said he had something to do and needed to leave, so Mu-sik would accompany him for the rest of the schedule. As the scene changes, a stack of dollars is placed into the hands of the man with glasses. In fact, a few months earlier, he had also been a big boss, but after getting involved in gambling, he lost everything he had. So in order to survive, he had no choice but to stay around the casino and work as a recruiter to earn some extra money. During the card game, Mu-sik sat beside him and was almost depressed to death. Because the big boss had listened to his advice, and every bet he placed was extremely small, so if he kept playing like this, when would it ever end? So Mu-sik kept influencing the big boss from the side, saying that he had once used 50,000 won to win back 300 million won, and what mattered in this game was ambition, and what mattered was excitement. After hearing this, the big boss immediately got carried away, but he never expected to fall into a huge trap. On the surface, Mu-sik was advising him to stop, but in his heart, he knew better than anyone that the more people lose money, the stronger the greed inside them becomes. So when the big boss asked to borrow money from him, Mu-sik agreed immediately, because an even bigger trap was still waiting for him. After receiving this rescue money, the big boss became excited again, and in the end, with Mu-sik's help, he even won nearly 30 million won, making him extremely happy. In order to leave the big boss with the feeling of wanting more, Mu-sik immediately advised him to stop at the right time, because only this way would the big boss feel the urge to come back again. Sure enough, only a few days after he returned to Korea, he called Mu-sik again, lying that it was the second anniversary of his company and that he wanted to take a vacation in the Philippines. But Mu-sik was not stupid, so how could he not know the real purpose of his trip to the Philippines? So Mu-sik booked him a first-class ticket, then bought a limited edition golf club as a gift for him, and as soon as he arrived in the Philippines, he headed straight to the casino. But this time, everything completely fell apart, because the big boss not only lost all the money he had brought with him, but also owed a large amount of money, and the excitement he had when he came to the Philippines disappeared completely. At first, someone had advised him not to continue, but at this moment, the big boss could not listen to anything, and only wanted to win back the money he had lost, causing him to sink deeper and deeper. In the end, he lost a total of 6 billion won in the casino, and even lost his company and properties back in Korea. With no other choice, the big boss no longer had the face to return to Korea, and could only become a recruiter in the casino, specializing in luring his own friends into the casino to earn extra money. What a classic long game trap. A few days later, a wealthy Korean woman came to the Philippines, and she was extremely rich. Every time she came, she would play around in the casino, and the bets she placed were always very large. But this wealthy woman was extremely superstitious, and whether her luck was good or bad all depended on the fortune other people brought her.
소정, 자기 오늘 무슨 색 팬티 입었어?
빨간색이요.
This wealthy woman directly took out 200 million won and placed it all on the red point. The banker opened an 8, while the wealthy woman's first card was a 3. Next, as long as a red 6 was drawn, all the bets on the table would be hers. After So-young gently blew a breath of good luck, the wealthy woman really drew a 6 of diamonds. To thank So-young for bringing her good luck,
너무 죄송합니다. 거덜내서.
아닙니다. 회장님 축하합니다.
the wealthy woman invited her to come to her room that night. Facing such a good opportunity, So-young agreed without even thinking. When the time came to the next day, what no one expected was that So-young had actually run away with the wealthy woman's 400 million won, which made the wealthy woman furious. But what the wealthy woman wanted was not an apology, because no one's money comes from nowhere, so she gave Mu-sik 1 week, demanding that he bring So-young in 200 million won in cash to her. Otherwise, she would not let this go easily. A serious incident like this would badly damage the reputation of the casino. So that night, Mu-sik took all of his men and went straight to So-young's rented apartment, but in the end, they did not even see a single person. And from his police friend, he learned that So-young had once been sentenced to 6 months for fraud. At that time, she had also been working in a casino, and under the name of a joint investment, she borrowed 700 million won from a customer, then disappeared completely. After serving 6 months in detention, she secretly crossed into the Philippines. It seemed that So-young was a repeat offender, and they absolutely could not let her escape so easily. Mu-sik immediately ordered his men to notify all travel agencies, and once they found any ticket purchase or travel record from her, they had to catch her on the spot. As the scene changes, So-young came alone to a remote hotel, and using the excuse that her passport and ID had been lost, she booked a short-stay room at the front desk, staying alert the entire time. Early the next morning, So-young went to a money exchange shop. After all, walking around the streets with 200 million won in cash would get her noticed sooner or later.
얼마요?
많이?
얼마나 많이?
4억.
The young man at the counter was completely stunned on the spot, because he had never seen so much money in his life, let alone send this much money across borders to Korea. So he told So-young to go to a bank to handle this business. But just as she walked out the door, Mu-sik's man suddenly got into the car, and the moment the two met, they hugged each other tightly. It turned out that the two of them were secret lovers. The man advised her to return the money right now, because Mu-sik was searching for her across the whole city, and even if she already had the money, she might earn it but never get the chance to spend it. But So-young refused to wake up. She believed that this money belonged to her, and said that no one could block her path to getting rich. What she did not know was that in the very next second, a police officer suddenly knocked on their car window. The two of them thought it was just illegal parking, so without thinking too much, they slowly lowered the window, but unexpectedly, the officer pointed his weapon into the car and opened fire, leaving both of them lifeless on the spot. After that, the police officer opened the trunk and quietly transferred the 400 million won, and the whole process was clean and efficient, taking less than 1 minute from start to finish. When night arrived, 2 cars stopped in the middle of nowhere, as if a secret deal was taking place. The police officer who had acted during the day dragged a heavy suitcase and slowly walked up to a man. And this man was none other than Mu-sik. That is the full story of the first season of Big Bet. As for why Mu-sik sent someone to take out his own man and So-young, and why the two of them secretly swallowed such a huge amount of money, there must be an unspeakable secret hidden behind it. Alright, that is all for today's story, and I will see you in the next episode.